Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. Today what we're going to talk about is the new Power Automate app for Microsoft Teams. Let's go. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about why this episode's important. So you've probably noticed since Ignite that Microsoft Teams has been positioned as a remote worker platform. All you need to do is go ahead and take a look at Microsoft's latest earnings to see the exponential growth of Microsoft Teams and how prevalent it is inside of the enterprise itself. Now, naturally, there's lots of opportunities when you think about Teams and collaboration and then automation and how does that fit into the picture. And so there are a lot of opportunities to leverage Power Automate to streamline your Teams activities. Could be notifications, could be approvals. It could be just creating automation opportunities when you need to move documents and things of that nature. So naturally, that creates this synergy between the two products, and it makes sense to actually go ahead and embed Power Automate experience inside of Microsoft Teams. Now, this isn't the first time that Microsoft has gone ahead and included this type of functionality. It was previously known as the Microsoft Flow application and has since been enhanced. It does a lot more than it used to do. And some of the new capabilities are just the ability to go ahead and create new cloud flows from blank or through templates itself. There's a very rich template ecosystem that is now part of Microsoft Teams and the Power Automate app. We'll also see some filtering capabilities where we can go ahead and see what flows exist inside of our default environment. And then we can also go ahead and see what are our flows that are related to Microsoft Teams, just if we want to be able to focus in on those specific assets itself. On top of that, we're also going to see some updates to what used to be known as the Flow bot, and it's now called the Chat tab, where we can go ahead and interact with adaptive cards and still get messages from the Flow bot itself, and to be able to do that from a single experience itself. Before we dive deeper into the content, I wanted to let you know about an emerging community found at serverlessnotes.com. This is a community resource that covers best practices, tips, and latest announcements built on contributions by technology enthusiasts from around the globe. On serverlessnotes.com, you'll find content related to Power Automate, Azure Logic Apps, Azure Service Bus, Azure Functions, and much, much more. Serverlessnotes.com is brought to you by Serverless 360, a portal that is focused on operations and support for Microsoft Azure serverless resources. Now, this is a complementary tool to the Azure portal, and it helps organizations in supporting Azure serverless applications. You can find out more about Serverless 360 at serverless360.com. Okay, so you might be asking yourself, how do I go ahead and find this app? So what you can do is log into Teams, then head over to the left-hand corner, bottom left-hand corner, click on Apps, then go ahead and search for Power Automate, then go ahead and click the Power Automate square here, or tile, and once you do that, the app will go ahead and be installed for you, and then what will happen is it'll appear here on your left nav, and you'll be able to access it from there. And that's exactly what's going on right here. I've already gone ahead and installed the app, and now I can go ahead and see Power Automate, and when I go ahead and click on it, then I see the Power Automate app appear for me, and then I can dive into all of these related goodies, and that is going to be the focus of our demo, so let's go ahead and jump right into that. Alright, so here we are, we're in Microsoft Teams, and as I mentioned before, I've got my app installed. It shows up here on the left nav. I can go ahead and just click on it, and it will take me over to this experience. So let's go ahead, let's take a look at what all is inside of this app. Now I'm on the home screen here, the home tab, and what I can go ahead and see is my flows. Now in this case, I have a filter here when it's set to Microsoft Teams flows, and I can also go ahead and click on all flows. So now what we'll notice, I've just opened up the Power Automate portal, and I am in my default environment. And so what I am seeing here is I am seeing my approval flow, my notify team when an item is created in SharePoint, and then also click a button to email note. So this is essentially my view into the default environment. I don't have the ability to go ahead and choose a different environment, and that's partly related to the fact that when we have these first-party integrated experiences, we will have those running in the default environment. And that allows the product to know exactly where these flows are and not have to manage all of these different environments and the security that is related to that. So that's something to keep in mind, is when you are looking at these flows, you're essentially taking a look at your default environment. Now, what else do we have here? We have the ability to go ahead and turn on or off any of these different flows. Naturally, we can click into them and we will have the ability to go ahead and get to the main page of the flow itself, right? So if I wanted to go ahead and send a copy or submit as template, turn off, etc., I have the ability to go ahead and do that from here. Now, if we click on the flows link, we head back to the core experience. Let's reset our filter and we can go from there. We also have the ability to do some editing, sharing, run history, and delete. So these will just basically act as shortcuts to be able to drop us right into that functionality itself. Now, we will talk about Create tab here shortly, but one thing I would call out here is we do have some popular Teams templates. Naturally, you're in Teams. Microsoft is trying to encourage you to take advantage of where you're at and having some contextually aware flows available to you. We can also go ahead and create a new flow from here. This would be a blank flow, but we also have this tab that is dedicated to the entire creation process. Once again, we can create from blank. We also have the ability to use templates. And what also has happened here is we see different groupings for our templates themselves. So if we were looking for something specific to remote work, we will go ahead and find it here. Now, what's interesting about these templates is when you click on them, we have this streamlined experience in terms of how we go about provisioning them. And we can do so once we've gone ahead and established our connections naturally. And then what we're seeing is a feature that's kind of referred to as the Diet Designer, where we only have to provide some very simple inputs in order to go ahead and create this flow. And the whole idea with this is we want to just be able to do things quickly. Naturally, you can go ahead and click on Edit in Advanced Mode if you want to have more customization over that. But in general, now we've got our first workflow that's been created and is actually available to be used. So that just speaks to how quickly you can go about creating these flows. And certainly if you've got some flows where you're trying to abstract some complexity from your end users, you can actually go ahead and use that Diet Designer in order to really have them something that just works. And then if they truly do want to tweak it or modify it, they can go ahead and do so. So that's our Create tab that we just walked through. Now let's talk a little bit about chat. So this might be a touch misleading if you were expecting to see like Power Virtual Agents. That's not the case here. This is essentially our flow bot. And what we see here on screen, right, these would be some of my previous interactions with the flow bot and or with an adaptive card. And so what's nice about this is this comes to one specific location. It's easy for me to go ahead and find them. I don't have to go hunting. All of that communication is showing up here. On top of it, when the Flowbot was released, part of its core capabilities was essentially to kind of be like a bot, to go fetch and go do something, right? So this functionality remains where I can go ahead and click on List Flows, and this will go ahead and list flows that align to this criteria here. So it can be triggered on a schedule or is manually triggered with no inputs. So for example, I have one that falls into this criteria. That's the flow approval itself. So what I can do now is type run flow, and then I can just type 1, and it'll actually go ahead and kick off that approval flow. So there's going to be some scenarios where this is like works for you and it's really easy to go ahead and to kick that off. Naturally, you still will have the ability to plug in Power Virtual Agents into Microsoft Teams if you've got some more advanced scenarios as well. Approvals are naturally a big part of the Power Platform. We do have many ways to interact with approvals. We have the Flow or the Power Automate mobile application, naturally your email. We have the Action Center inside of Power Automate Maker Portal, and this is essentially that same view on top of that data. So I've got a couple outstanding approvals that exist right here. One which I just kicked off, right, when I kicked off the Flowbot. And so I can go ahead and respond to it right from within this interface. Once again, I don't have to leave Teams to go ahead and deal with approvals. It's something that's available right to me inside of Teams. And so I can stay in Teams and not lose track of what are my tasks, what am I trying to do. Now, if I've gone ahead and sent out approvals, they'll show up here. and I would have the ability to go ahead and cancel them. For example, let's say that it was no longer relevant. I could go ahead and cancel that approval, and essentially the person that I had sent that to would no longer need to go ahead and approve that request. On top of it, we also have our history. It's kind of like an audit log. Here we can see that I've gone ahead and have 2 requests for Lydia that have been approved, and then we also have one that was canceled, the one that I had just shown you. So obviously that's very quick. That happens in real time, and we have this single pane of glass where we can go ahead and view all of these approvals. We also have some filters here as well where we can go ahead and modify them and search as required. Now, I don't have any business process flows configured, but if I did, they would show up here. We would have both active and inactive BPFs that would be available to us. And then naturally, we also have this handy little about. So if we were interested in the version that we are using, that information is available right here. So hopefully that gives you a nice overview of the new Power Automate app for Teams, and really curious to see if you use this, if you think this would be useful for you. Go ahead, put that feedback in the comments. I'd love to get your perspective on this specific capability. So with that said, we'll wrap up today's show, and we'll catch you next week on the channel. All right, so that concludes another episode on the channel. Thanks for checking this out. If you're not following me on Twitter, go ahead and find me at Weare. I'd love to hear from you. You're obviously on YouTube. Appreciate you watching the video. Likes and subscribes are always welcome. Go ahead and do that if you haven't already done so. Also, comments are welcome as well. Go ahead. Tell me what's on your mind. What are you looking for? How do you use Power Automate? Would love to find out more about how you're using this technology. With that said, we'll wrap it up, and we'll see you soon back on the channel. Take care.